Alright guys, we're going to learn a second way of factoring today. Factoring out a GCF, we only had a monomial in front. Because remember, all this factoring stuff is just undoing what distributing does. So the type of problems that we do today are going to be undoing this type of problem on the board here, having a binomial times a binomial. So real quickly, just remembering how we multiply these, we would have to distribute the x to get x squared, distribute it again to get 2x, and then we would go and distribute the 5 and we'd get 5x, and then we'd distribute it to the 2 and get plus 10. Then we saw that we could combine our like terms here, 2x and 5x turn into 7x. And so we got x squared plus 7x plus 10. All right, now today all the problems that we are going to work with are going to look something like this. All right, there's going to be an x squared. This could be a plus or a minus sign. We'll have some number, x. This could be a plus or a minus sign, and we'll have some number. Those are the ones that we're going to factor. And we give those kind of a general form. We call it x squared plus bx plus c, where b is going to turn into some number, and c is going to turn into some number. And when you factor it, you always know, as long as it looks like x squared plus bx plus c, you know that it'll look something like this. There's going to be a binomial times a binomial. Here's one here where we'll just have to fill in this term, and there's one more here where we'll have to fill in this term. And before we even worry about any numbers, the first thing that you're going to do is worry about what sign goes right here and what sign goes right here. And it's going to be a two-step process, and you got to kind of work backwards. The first thing you look at is this back sign. Because it's plus, that's going to tell us that the sign that goes here will match the sign that goes here. And so you got two choices. Right now it could either be plus plus or it could be minus minus. And the way that we're going to tell which one it is we look up in front. So I am going to put a plus sign in this one, and I'm going to put a plus sign in this one. Later we'll talk about some numbers. Let's just do another one looking at signs. So if we're looking at this guy here now, we always look in the back first. Okay, so we have this plus sign right here. That tells us that my signs here and here will be the same. And to figure out if it should be plus plus or minus minus, I just look at this sign here. Because that is a minus sign, that tells me that I'm going to use minus minus. Let's look at another one. Now, as we look in the back on this problem, we see that there is a minus sign. That is going to tell me that whatever sign I put here is going to be different than the sign that I put here. So I need one of them to be a plus and one of them to be a minus, and it really doesn't matter where they go. You need one plus sign and one minus sign. You could have gone ahead and flipped that. You could have put the minus sign here and the plus sign here, and it wouldn't have made a difference, whichever one you prefer to do. Let's look at another example. Okay, here's another one. I got a minus sign in the back here, so that again tells me that my signs will be different. I'm going to need a plus in one of them, and I'm going to need a minus in the other. Okay, so all of that stuff just told us to look at signs, and that's it. Now we're going to start to attack this problem that actually has some numbers in it. We see it's x squared plus bx, where b is 10, plus c, where c is 24. So we know because it looks like x squared plus bx plus c, that I want to have a binomial here with an x, and I want to have a binomial here with an x. And it's going to be a couple of steps to figure out what should go into these blank spaces here. I got to figure out what sign, what number, and I got to figure out what sign and what number. And you always, always, always want to start with your signs. So when you're starting with your signs, you look here and you see a plus. That tells you that your signs are going to be the same. And to figure out if it's plus plus or minus minus, you just look in front. But notice you always start in the back here. That told me the same. That told me they'll both be plus. So I want to put a plus sign right here, and I'm going to put a plus sign right here. Now, this next part that we haven't talked about yet is I got to fill in the number that goes here. Okay, and the number that goes here as well. Now that's going to be a two-step kind of a process. And as I say this, you got to both listen and you got to watch about where my laser pointer is going. To figure out the numbers that go here and here, you need to find numbers that multiply to C and do whatever this sign says to B. So what we got to do in this case is we got to find two numbers that can multiply to 24 and they have to add to 10. And so if you think about all the factors of 24, it could be 1 and 24, it could be 2 and 12. Well, none of those add to 10 yet. It could be 3 and 8. Those still don't add to 10. Another set of factors of 24 is 4 and 6. And we finally realize that these two factors right here can multiply to 24 and they can add to 10. So I got a 4 and I've got a 6. And when your signs are both the same, it doesn't matter where they go. You need to put a 4 in one of them and you need to put a 6 in the other one. Okay? You would find out that if you were to distribute like x to x, x to 6, 4 to x, and 4 to 6, that you would get right back to this answer. Because again, factoring is just undoing what distributing does. Let's look at another one. Okay? So you'll notice that we have the same numbers here, but our signs have changed, okay? In our last problem, this was a plus sign here, and this was a plus as well. All right, now because it's x squared plus bx plus c, I already know that it's going to be a binomial times a binomial, so I can already fill this part in. And the first thing you got to look at is your signs. Right here, I've got a plus sign. That tells me that my signs need to be the same, and they're going to both be minus. So I'm going to fill in a minus here and a minus here. Now to come up with our numbers that go here and here. Again, you got to listen and watch to figure out what those numbers need to do. They will always, always, always need to multiply to C. That'll always be the case. And in this case, because this is a plus sign, those factors of 24, because they got to multiply to 24, are going to need to add to 10. And we found that out in the last example that we did, that if I take 4 and 6, that these two numbers can both multiply to 24 and they can add to 10. So I need to plug in those two numbers, and it really doesn't matter where they go. Put a 4 in one, put a 6 in the other. Another example. All right, again, same numbers, but the signs have changed. Now I got a plus here and I've got a minus here. It's still x squared plus bx plus c, so I know it's going to be a binomial times a binomial with these x's in front. And the first thing I got to do is look at signs. When you're trying to figure out the signs that go here and here, you always look at this back sign first. When it's minus, that tells me that this sign has to be different than this sign. So I fill in a plus in one of them, and I fill in a minus in the other one. Now I got to figure out my numbers that go right here and right here. And your numbers are going to have to multiply to C. Again, they always will multiply to C, but now watch what happens with our 10. They're going to have to do whatever this sign says to 10. So now I got to find things that multiply to 24 and subtract to 10. And again, if you think about all the factors of 24, you got 1 and 24. Well, those don't subtract to 10. So go on to the next set of factors. I got 2 and, I'm sorry, not 10. I got 2 and 12. And those actually those will subtract to 10. Okay? 2 times 12 will be 24. And when I subtract 2 and 12, their difference is 10. So those are going to be the two numbers that I use. Now in this case, because our signs are different, it's going to matter where the 2 goes and where the 12 goes. Okay? And the way that you can tell where they go is the bigger of the two numbers, this 12, goes wherever this sign is. Okay, so because 12 is bigger and we want our B to be positive, I am going to have to put that 12 with the plus sign which means the 2 then will have to go with a minus sign. One more example. We got another, all the same numbers, except now we're looking at 2 minus signs, x squared minus 10x minus 24. Always a binomial times a binomial with those x's in front. And we always look in the back for our signs. Because this is a minus sign, that means your signs need to be different. Put a plus in one, put a minus in the other. Now we got to figure out our numbers that go right here and right here. And again, they will always, always, always have to multiply to 24. It just changes what they got to do to this 10. They always multiply to c. In this case, they need to subtract to 10. And we talked about in that last example that 2 and 12 can multiply to 24 and they can subtract to 10. So I'm going to use 2 and 12, but again, because my signs are different, it matters where they go. So I got to take the bigger number, which is 12, and it goes wherever this sign is. So I got to find where I put my minus sign, and that is going to be where I put my 12. And then your 2 has to go in the other one. So to kind of sum this whole thing up here, when you're factoring x squared plus bx plus c, the first thing you got to do is look at the back sign. It'll be one of two things. Okay? First, if it's a minus sign, that tells you that your signs will be different. You'll put a plus in one and you'll put a minus in the other. And once you figure out your numbers that can multiply to c and subtract to b, you'll have to put the bigger number with the sign that was in front. Okay, now if we looked at that back sign and it was a plus, then that means my signs are going to be the same. And right now I got two choices. It could be plus plus or minus minus. I got to use whatever that front sign is. And whatever that one is the one that I'm going to use twice. Then to fill in my numbers, again, they multiply to c, but in this case they will have to add to b.